G'day and welcome back to the Keeping It Real AFL Fantasy Podcast. I am Coach Ace of the Spaceman, and as always, I'm joined by Coach Nick of Nowvenator, wrapping up round 4 of the AFL Fantasy season. Coach Nick, welcome.
Thanks, Space. Happy to be back in the studio 2 weeks in a row now.
Yeah.
Had a good week in DT myself, both classic and draft, so keen to dissect it all.
Yeah, well, it must be nice. I had a couple of absolute shockers, but we'll get into that a bit later. So, a couple of talking points going into round 4. I just want to drop a couple of Geelong names for you.
Okay.
Tanner Bruin and young Ollie Henry.
Yeah.
So, going into round...
Tanner gets a mention every week, I think, in this pod.
Well, I think this might be the last week we mentioned Tanner because he's out of the side at the moment. And I think I queried whether he was in Geelong's best 22 going into round 1, and then you absolutely roasted me for it. He put in 3 stinking performances in a row. He's been dropped. We've discussed maybe it could be attitude problems or is he being played out of position. But, yeah, so again, another one of Ace being right. Tanner Bruin out. Ollie Henry made sub. Also questioned his spot. Have you seen him traded out of your side?
Yeah, so I traded him in Classic, I think after round 2. So I think he had 2 bad weeks in a row. But I'm actually just getting up the VFL stats as we speak. So
we love talking about VFL stats here.
Yeah, so now that he's actually been given a fair go and some time on ball and extra game time, he's managed 36 disposals, 17 kicks, 19 handballs. So that's sort of not what I'd be expecting in AFL with good game time and good CBAs, but I think probably around the 80 mark if he was given that opportunity in the AFL.
I think Jackson Nelson also scored something similar for the West Coast Eagles waffle side on the weekend, but we won't be dissecting too many VFL scores on the potty, but yeah, Tanner, stiff mate, get that attitude right, we might see you back in the Geelong best 22. We just want to talk about some other hot topics around AFL fantasy at the moment.
Braden Ham getting 34 touches in the VFL.
No one cares, mate. We want to talk about the premium positional players. So we're talking about Sam Doherty, Rory Laird, Josh Dunkley, all the 3 most expensive players in their respective lines, all been disappointing. We've just found out today Doherty's out for 6 to 8 weeks, or 4 to 6 weeks, something like that.
Yep.
Did you go with those 3 premiums in your classic side?
Yeah, all 3. So Laird and Dunkley have been the disappointing 2. Doherty obviously has sort of been, I think, 2 really good weeks and 2 sort of just below average weeks in the 80s. So you could say that they're all been disappointing. Laird especially, particularly when he's been captain of a lot of sides, has let a lot of people down other than his big score in round 2. And then Dunkley just hasn't really got going so far this year. He's had 1 big score of 116, which I think a lot of people almost expected him to average for the whole year, just
100%.
about. Although having said that, he has had a rough run in terms of fixtures. He's had Port Adelaide, Melbourne, the Bulldogs and Collingwood, so not the easiest opponents in the first month of the season. And North Melbourne this week for Josh Dunkley. So I am expecting him to bounce back. If he doesn't, then big concerns for Josh Dunkley for the year ahead.
Yeah, has he been playing... You keep a close eye on the CBAs. Has he been playing predominantly in the midfield?
I can't say I've been all over it, although can't imagine he'd be playing anywhere else. I literally just don't see him on the TV.
Oh, mate, I'm the exact same. He's like Tom Rockcliffe when he played.
Tom Rockcliffe would rock up with 150 at the end of the game.
Even when Dunkley was good at the Doggies last year, I just wouldn't notice him. So, I don't know if it's Brisbane's jumpers or there's too many decent midfielders in there taking up the spotlight, or maybe he's just not getting enough of the fuel at the moment.
I think a combination of everything. But yeah, I just haven't seen him around the ball as much as you usually do. And he's having reasonable game time, sort of around the 80%, which is pretty standard for a midfielder. But yeah, just struggled to get going so far this year.
Yeah, I mean, out of those 3 boys, the one who's probably disappointed me the most is Rory Laird. I've had him as my captain for every single game thus far. Obviously, going into round 1, I'm going to make him my captain. He's the most expensive player on my field, expecting, I think, average near the 130 last year.
Yeah, and 134 in the pre-season, I think.
Something like that. 144 in round 2 did me very nicely then, and then 2 stinker scores in a row for my captain. So James H was tagging him at the start of the Freo game on the weekend, and that sort of dropped off in the second half.
He should have gone to Dawson in the end.
I 100% should have gone to Dawson. He was the best man on the ground by a long way. And has also been the best player for Adelaide probably all year. But he still managed 28 disposals. So the Rory Laird of last year, if he's struggling, probably would lay 10 tackles or something like that. But he just hasn't been putting up the big scores that we know from him.
I don't know. I think you can sort of spin it a little bit. So he's had 3 frees against. Give him a few more points if that doesn't happen. Obviously it did.
He was scraping to the 90s with Taylor's free kicks.
And tagged in the first half. So you can assume if that doesn't happen, which I don't think it will, I feel like it has to go to Dawson because Dawson's actually playing a bit in the midfield and then sort of going back and taking kick-outs. So I think most people would agree that Dawson's a lot more damaging and going forward, if there's going to be a tag, it's probably more likely to go to Dawson. So if you look at it that way, he's given away 3 free kicks 2 weeks in a row, actually. He's done that. And he was tagged in the first half. So if you remove the first half tag, then it's actually not the worst score, but you're right, he's not going that flash. I
mean, I just can't help but dream if I went with Clary Oliver in round 1.
Yeah.
What's he averaging? Like 120 or 130 odd. Wow. So
compared to what? 91.
Yeah.
And that's with 1 big score, really.
So, yeah, hindsight's a wonderful thing. But talking about the other premium that we mentioned before, Sam Doherty, out for 4 to 6 weeks. I think we can get into it now. Do you have him in your team? I have him in my team. What's the play here? Who are we looking at replacing him with?
So I mentioned him before. Dawson has been really impressive all year. Obviously won the Showdown medal 2 weeks ago, but that was actually his worst performing game with an 81.
Controversially won it as well.
Yep. So I think that's the most obvious choice if you don't have Dacos and Stewart already. I would have probably said Will Day is the other option to trade to, but he's obviously been suspended for 2 weeks. As we speak right now, he's been suspended for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I don't know, probably 50-50 chance that Hawks will challenge it.
Should challenge it.
Okay, give us your thoughts.
Well, in the exact same game, Gary Rowan gets suspended, gets 1 week for a sling tackle. Gary's was off the ball, the man didn't have the ball, and was like a legitimate old-fashioned sling, 2 motions, spun him around into the ground head first. Whereas I feel like Days was a little more innocuous. It almost looked like whoever the Geelong player he was tackling tripped over, and that's why it looked like it was 2 actions. And it was bad. His head went to the ground. I'm happy for it to get 1 week, but if he's getting 2 and Rowan's only getting 1, I think Hawthorn have some sort of grounds to challenge.
Okay. Hot take from Spaceman, but I tend to agree with Asherlanch on this. I don't tend to get too involved in tribunal matters. It doesn't interest me too much, but it'll be interesting to see if he gets off. Now, I'm just looking down the run sheet that you've very kindly printed off for us today.
No worries.
Very professional. And it says here, Tim Kelly in career best form, ?
Well,
You can't be serious, can you?
Well,
Tim Kelly.
The reason it has a question mark is because the facts state that he is in career best form. You know, he's never had 30 disposals 3 weeks in a row in his whole career.
No, I didn't.
He's just done that. So he's averaging...
How many wins?
Well, that doesn't matter. That's not his fault. He's doing the best he can in a struggling side. He's averaging career-high disposals, career-high contested possessions. He's going at a goal a game, and he's 3rd in the AFL Association coaches' votes. I think, no-brainer, he's in career best form right now, and we'll talk to PETMONEYSNIPER in the potty a little later on.
Does he have...
He does have Tim Kelly, so he's got his 142 or whatever he scored this week. But yeah, Tim Kelly, career best form. If you're looking to trade out a mid, I can only see that form continuing.
Okay, you've come prepared with the stats there.
Yeah.
I don't know, I feel like the eye test would say, yes, he's playing very well, but it's obviously only a month into the season, and potentially you could argue it's easier to find more of the ball in a weaker midfield when you look at his Geelong days when he's playing with Dangerfield, Ablett and Selwood, Duncan, Menegola, all these guys. And there's only 1 footy out there, so obviously Dangerfield and those blokes would have been finding it a lot more.
Yeah, but who's he got roving to? Who's he roving to? Bailey Williams.
Brody Grundy, mate.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Brody Grundy's trying to hit it away from him.
Don't know.
Contested possessions is where, is what's most impressive. Career highs, averaging about 13. Tim Kelly's in career best form at the moment, and I think that will only continue. So if you've got the cash, jump on him. He will do you well for the rest of the year, that's for sure.
don't know, maybe a draft option. I wouldn't be touching in Classic, but I'm keen to hear Pet Money Sniper's thoughts because he obviously drafted him. Okay, now another thing I wanted to raise is a bit of the ruck conundrum I'm in. So ideally I want to end up with Tim English.
We all do.
Yes, of course. And I know you started with TDK, so you're in all sorts. You're worse than me with Tristan Xerri.
Literally all sorts, mate.
So Tim English has gone 145 on the weekend, averaging 122, and he's in neither of our teams.
Well, do we sell the house to get him? Is he just one of those ones that you have to have, will be a mainstay, will be scoring probably, averaging 110 plus for the rest of the year? Or are there better ruck options around that price, or much cheaper, that, you could find a bit of value with?
Look, I don't know the answer.
No.
I think...
Special comments.
Look, not going to lie, because I haven't started with him, and he has had injury problems in the past, I am just terrified that I'll bring him in and then he'll get injured.
Absolutely terrified.
So that's half what I'm almost waiting to happen. And I've got Sean Darcy, who I'm actually trying to half move to Brodie Grundy. He had the Eagles last week where I was really keen to bring him in. And Brodie Grundy's got Richmond without Nankervis in 2 weeks' time. So he's one that I'm looking at getting in just around Darcy's price, because I still don't like how Jackson's taking a fair chunk of the ruck.
Yeah.
In terms of Tim English, I mean, yeah, I think everyone has to have him. That's a simple answer.
Well, then he's probably only going to go up in price from here. He's at a measly $969K at the moment. I feel like he's going to creep up into the millions in the next few weeks. Who's he got next week? He's got Port Adelaide, so Lycett. He's a good competitor, but I feel like English will dominate him around the ground.
And he's got Darcy and Jackson.
But that would be an interesting matchup. I feel like Darcy's the kind of guy that English might struggle against.
Well, Darcy'd win the hit-outs, but I actually looked at... What was I looking at? Tim English and his stats. He's actually not getting... He's not usually winning the hit-outs, I don't think. He's obviously just taking marks, tackling, kicking goals, and finding the ball around the ground. That's how he scores his points. So that'll be an interesting battle against Darcy in a few weeks.
Well, yeah, I was watching the Doggies Richmond game on the weekend, and Nankervis was dominating those hit-outs. Big Toby.
How do you say his last name?
Nankervis.
Nankervis, mate. You called me out for... who'd you call me out for last week? Taron Thomas.
Well, Taron Thomas is stupid, mate. No one in the history of the world has named Taron, mate.
No one has ever said Nankervis. No, mate.
Mate, I can go back on the commentary. I reckon you can hear a few people call him Nankervis.
Nah, zero chance. Let us know in the comments, firstly, what you heard Space say. And
well, no, I said Nankervis. So yeah. I'm not disagreeing
okay.
that it said Nankervis. But, yeah, let us know in the comments.
Feedback
After you like and subscribe, just let us know, please, because I feel like BT's called him Nankervis over the years.
I don't think so. Anyway, another interesting hot topic at the moment is Harry Sheezel. So,
oh, yes.
Hard to argue that anyone has had a better first month of their AFL career, particularly for an 18-year-old.
Yeah, well, I was looking back through the fantasy history today, and I believe you might have been as well. No one really holds a candle to these stats that he's putting up, at fantasy stats, that is. 109 points is his lowest score of the year in the first 4 rounds. So you got to go back to Michael Barlow in 2010 when he put up his first 4 scores. Well, his first 2 scores were really the only 2 that were impressive. It was 128, 127, and then he put in scores of 46, 78.
I think he got tagged and he said... Well, who was that against in round 3?
That was against the Cats.
I think Cameron Ling might have gone to him.
Yeah, well, wouldn't be surprised after his first 2 games with 34 and 33 disposals, respectively. He went on to score 100 in 7 of his next 10 games, having a few 90s in there as well. But other than that, we were looking at Nick Dacos last year, Jay Gromere in his draft year, Sam Walsh in his draft year. They don't even come close to the numbers Harry Sheezel is putting up. So I think this young man is the best cash cow or rookie we've ever seen in AFL fantasy. So if you don't have him, terrible luck to you.
Everyone has him.
I hope so. I think some coaches in the league...
I don't know. I'm not sure if Lenny didn't start with him or if he just had him on the bench and stuffed it up.
Yeah.
Either way,
big L.
Another one I want to bring up was Brett Goods. He was very good for, at least the first month he had, and he obviously had back status. I reckon he scored a couple hundred straight away.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. I've got his stats right in front of me.
Do you?
Yeah, so his first game he scored 91,
yeah,
82, 48, 115, and then some pretty mediocre scores. So for a rookie, awesome scores. But when you compare them to Sheasley's scores of all 109 plus, doesn't even come close.
Yeah.
Interesting career, Brett Goods. I actually can't remember what happened to him.
I think he was 28 on debut.
Oh, really? Yeah.
All right, moving on. All right, let's review our matchup. So we took each other on in draft this week in Ashton and Friends Keepers League.
Yeah.
And, I'm sure the listeners will all be well aware of who won and not surprised at all. Nalvinator took out a victory. So, Space, what did you make of the matchup? Well, who let you down?
Well, I'm just getting the match up in front of me now. Going into it, I was pretty confident. I was looking at our teams, and I was like, you know what? They're not too different. I haven't won a game this year, but I was looking at the Nalvinators lineup. I was like, you're not that much better than me. But where we went wrong, I went down by 105 points. I think the main place where it went wrong was the ruck. So you had Brody Grundy scored 119 against the 20-year-old forward ruck, who dominated.
Do you remember if you took Riley O'Brien over Brody Grundy in the draft?
You know what?
I don't know if you want to check.
Even if I did, I was taking a number 1 ruckman over a number 2 ruckman at the time. So there's justification for that. But yeah, Riley O'Brien...
Number 1 Sample ruckman.
Riley O'Brien let me down for the first time this year, scoring 65 to Grundy's 119. And then we had a couple of other matchups going head-to-head that didn't quite pan out. But I think other than that, if I had Harry Mackay on my field instead of Sam Switkowski, could have been a different story.
Yeah, well, I could say that for a few as well. Want to shout out Sam Draper on my bench with 103. I mentioned at the start of the year that he's a bit of a project player for me, sitting on my ruck bench.
You've also been highly critical of him.
I have been.
Off air. Yeah.
Off air, have I?
Yeah, off air. You've been highly
maybe
critical
that
of
can
him.
stay off air.
Sam, if you're listening.
Yeah. But no, he's playing with Phillips, and he still scored 103. He's playing a bit of forward as well. Only had 24 hit-outs. So I want to shout out to you, Sam Draper. Keep up the good work.
Well, as long as we're shouting out people on my bench, we'll touch on Jakey Stringer a bit later in the show, but I'll shout out Harry Mackay. I extremely foolishly had him on my bench. He's put in a couple of stinkers to start the year, but he was versing North Melbourne without Griffin Logan, Ben Mackay. So he was always going to kick a bag. So silly of me to have him on my bench for that game. But the other player I want to shout out...
Easy to say in hindsight, mate. You were talking up Sam Switkowski a lot. Talking about his centre bounce attendance.
Yes.
That's it, really.
Well, because I watched him live against the Eagles, and maybe it's because the Eagles have a dog shit midfield other than Tim Kelly. And he was dominating. He scored 104. Looked like he was in every single CBA. He was getting little cheeky handballs around the back, Nick Dacos style. And I thought against the Crom that he was going to do the same, but his score of 44 suggested otherwise.
Very funny to see that Jaden Stevenson got his highest score of the year. Now he's on your bench.
Still, it was nothing special. Jaden Stevenson, 69. But I did want to shout out one of my free agents who was sitting on my bench, and that's Jaden Hunt. He's put in a score of 95 against his old side. He was one of the best players on the ground for West Coast, I thought. Drew some criticism from coaches in the league for picking him up, saying he's not a fantasy player.
Yeah, straight to your face.
Yeah, straight to my face, yeah.
So let's ask Pet Money Sniper about that.
We will ask Pet Money Sniper, because there was some angst behind that comment when he said it to me and it hurt. But score of 95, he's proven the doubters wrong, and he'll probably be on my field this week. I might just put him ahead of Shannon Hearn, knowing...
Oh, definitely.
Well, probably.
He's got a 50, Shannon Hearn.
Well, yeah, we don't drop players for one game now, do we, Nick?
Okay.
But I need to try some things to get off this 0-4 second bottom of the ladder, I believe. Unless Jacob got the W this week. Oh, he did. Oh, no, I'm just bottom of the ladder anyway.
Yeah. Look, for a bottom of the ladder team, we've spoken a lot about your team this episode, but I want to ask one more question. Why do you have Charlie Constable sitting on your bench when he's not in the team?
Because I haven't found a free agent to replace him yet that I like.
Wilmot sitting there, young player, early pick.
I don't know if Wilmot's the kind of player you want your draft side. And I still got a bit of hope that Constable can come back into the team. So he's probably going to be an emergency every single week. And when he comes in, we know he's capable of scoring a very reasonable score. So yeah, that's my reason for having Charlie. But yeah, look, took another L this week. You took the Chockies. Congratulations. As always, I'll bounce back bigger and better next week.
Yep, nice. So I feel like we've been going for a while, but we haven't even got onto the everyone's favourite segment.
Oh, yeah.
The Gurus, the Child Prodigy, and the Heartbreaker. So, Guru, the player
Really
of the
rolls
round.
off the tongue.
It does, doesn't it? So, who was your Guru this week?
So my guru this week, Coach Nick of Nalvenator, was a man who's not in my team. I don't think he's in many people's teams anymore. He had a slow start to the year, but put in one of the all-time scores. And that's Noah Anderson.
Okay.
So, Noah Anderson, I had him in my classic team for the majority of the summer. And then, as we get closer to round one, you move some things around. He put up a score of a whopping 159. So, I have to give him a shout out this week because I thought he'd take the next step this year. After a slow first few weeks, I'm really hoping this is a sign of better things to come for Noah Anderson and the Gold Coast Suns for that, man. I just want to see them do well, Who was your guru of the round?
Easy selection for me. He's in my keeper team and he's in my classic team as my vice captain on a Thursday night. 126 by Nick Dacos. So
It's been Nick.
Yeah. So
second time you've made him guru.
Yep. So I used him as my vice captain. Miller Bergman with a laid out became my captain, so I could take Nick's score of 126, and in my draft team as well, so I can't go past him.
Yeah,
A fair bit of criticism on Twitter about Nick Dacos, which I despise.
Don't get me started on the Twitter Warriors. Had 38 touches, led contested possessions, pulls out of one contest, and he gets absolutely
he did not pull out of a contest, mate.
He overran
fumbled a ball and looked up a tad early because he thought he was going to grab the ball. He fumbled it, and fumbled the ball and lost it.
Hey, I'm a Nick Dacos lover, not a hater, so no need to get angry at me. But yeah, I agree.
Did say he pulled out of a contest, which seriously fired me up, mate.
Oh, well, you look fired up, to be honest. But yeah, no, big fan of Nick Dacos. Much unwarranted hate, but glad to see you've made him your guru for the second time this year. What a lucky man.
So, a lot of people are saying that he doesn't have a contested game, right?
Well, he led contested possessions on the ground on Thursday night.
I think that's untrue. I think he is a good contested ball player. He just isn't able to show it as much because he is so good on the outside and so skillful. But even if he isn't a good contested player, it doesn't matter.
Who cares? It's
because
not his role.
He's so good at other things.
Exactly.
It's like saying that Patrick Cripps is slow.
It's like saying that Buddy Franklin's bad at spoiling or keeping his man to 0 goals.
Spot on.
So, yeah, completely agree with you there, Nick.
All right. What's next? The Child Prodigy. For me, I had... So, someone in my draft team, Finn Callahan. He's been on my bench. He's just sitting there, marinating on the bench for me. He's going to take a couple years before he overtakes the likes of Luke Parker and Paddy Dangerfield. Actually, he might get Paddy Dangerfield almost next year, I reckon. But Finn got an 88, which isn't massive. But it's his best score of the year.
Future star of the comp.
Yeah, should be a really good player. He's got Hawthorn this week. I might even field him because Ollie Wines just got a 48, who I'll touch on in a sec.
Yeah, no, love it. Great choice. I'm going with more of an obvious pick this round. It's Mitchie Owens from the Saints.
Nice.
Scored 115, had 27 disposals and 5 tackles. Couple of goals as well, a couple of real crafty goals. He looks like to be a star of the future, and he, as I love to say, is symptomatic of the Saints' performances this year.
You do love that word. Yep, no, good pick. So, my heartbreaker, now, the most disappointing player for me this week was a very easy one. Last week was Isaac Heaney. I actually want to give him a bit of a shout out. He started a kick and got his highest score of 82, which still isn't great, but highest score of the year. I want to see that continued improvement. So I'm hoping this guy can bounce back like Isaac did. Ollie Wines with a 48. 48 points.
Yeah, that's stinky.
Ollie Wines.
That's very stinky.
On my field.
Do you know why? Did you watch the game?
So I had the sniffles on Saturday night.
Oh, you're kidding.
So I did watch the game. I stayed in and I actually had nothing better to do. I was literally watching the whole post-game interviews and everything. And he got interviewed because it was obviously a tight game. And gave his thoughts, and he said that he's had no summer, no pre-season, limited prep. So that gave a bit of context to his bad score.
Has he been playing early, like the first few rounds? Was this his first game?
No, he's played every game, but that was his worst performance. But it was interesting to hear him say that he is a bit underdone and hear him admit it.
How have his other scores been?
Oh, around 93, 75, 82. So
pretty average.
Yeah, still a bit below average what you'd expect of a guy that won the Brownlow 2 years ago, but. Yeah, I'm hoping he can, I don't know, find his fitness or whatever.
Yeah, no, great heartbreaker. Good call. Brownlow medalist as well, so you expect a lot better. I'm going for probably a little controversial one because he wasn't that poor on the weekend, but mine's Tom Stewart. So, got him in my classic team this week. He's been in my draft team all year. and scored 70. So I was watching him all game, watching that Easter Monday game from start to finish, and he just was playing as deep as you could possibly be in the back line. He was the last line of defence. Geelong did not get their chipping game going, and any time they decided to chip, it always went to Mitch Duncan. So Mitch Duncan, I think, he's ended up on 130-odd or 140-odd. I'm just a little worried that with him coming back into the team, he's going to be that rebounding, intercept marking defender, Duncan, and take some of those points away from Tom Stewart. So score of 70, not that bad, but my heart was breaking, mainly watching Duncan, because I'm worried that he's going to take points off Stewart for the rest of the year.
Yeah, until he does a calf. Yeah, no, fair enough. I think Hawthorn just got killed out of the middle in that second half, so it probably limited his opportunity. But, yep, fair enough. That sucks with the 70. I traded him into my classic team, so a little bit disappointed with that. Now, we reviewed the transactions in the league last week.
We did.
A few of the ones you brought in were Sam Swikowski and Jaden Hunt. So you've had one good, one bad there.
One good, one bad. Unfortunately, the bad one being Sam Swikowski was on my field, and the good one, Jaden Hunt, was on my bench, which never helps. But yeah, we touched on it earlier with Sam Swikowski. Got excited by his CBAs and his 104 against the Eagles last week. Thought he'd see a lot more midfield time. So got him into my team, put him on my field in what was been a struggling forward line and very slim pickings as we've spoken about previously. But yeah, he let me down, especially with Harry Mackay's 119 on my bench. That really hurt. But Jaden Hunt, 95 on my bench. He'll be on my field this week, hoping it's a sign of big things to come for the new Eagle. What about you? How'd you go with your transactions?
So I was going back and forth who to bring in for Dyson Heppel.
Oh, yeah.
Went to Wilmot, who I mentioned before, and then ended up with Will Powell. Former teammate of mine, Will Powell.
Interesting. Nice guy.
Yeah, nice guy. So good to see him back from his injury.
Shocking injury, yeah.
Shocking, I hate to see that.
Yeah.
But he's gone sort of 65% game time into 76, so I think he's slowly building back to full fitness, and he got an 86 on the weekend.
Oh, I love that. You take that.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a good player for me going forward in my keeper team.
Yeah, I think he's got a bright future at the Suns as well, Will Powell. Absolute star. Alrighty, as we've mentioned in previous weeks, we love our draft and our keepers league, but we also want to touch on the classic. So, Nick, let's talk about your classic team. What are your trades going to this week? A couple of forced ones, I'm sure.
Yep, so recording this Tuesday night, assuming Will Day's suspension is upheld for 2 weeks.
Yep.
If it's downgraded to 1 week, could be a different story. But at the moment, Will Day's gone, and I'm still trying to work it out, to be honest. I'm actually weighing up Lockie Weller.
Interesting.
I don't know if I'm going to follow through with it.
I don't mind it. It's bold.
So he's literally the same, pretty much the same price, which I was surprised with. I was hoping he'd be a bit of a downgrade, but he's gone 88, 90, and 109. So improving each week, along with his game time. Obviously back from his long-term injury. So that's one that I'm thinking of, and then I think the obvious one is just Doherty to Dawson.
Yeah.
So 2 forced trades, obviously. I still want to get Grundy somehow, but I just can't this week. If Will Day is a 1 week up, then that could change things.
Well, you see, even if he is 2 weeks, I'm still inclined to keep him.
You're kidding.
Not kidding. Because I think there's still money to be made and points to be scored off him. And I'll back in my bench. I know it's just Cowan and Wilmot, but I'm comfortable having them on my field for 2 weeks if it means Will Day comes back and continues performing the way he does. Because I've got other trades I need to make, let's be honest. I've got Tom de Koning scoring 60s with Mark Pitnet, and he's playing second fiddle. So I need to get rid of him. I got money in the bank. I still got Constable on my bench that I need to downgrade. But I couldn't downgrade him last week, so I had 2 other forced trades I needed to make. So I was like, you know what, I'll hold on to him for a week, and I'll use the money this week.
Actually, 2 weeks, because you could have traded him 2 weeks ago when you found out the teams were named late. And
yeah, but no one did that.
A lot of people did.
Don't reckon any gurus did. So, yeah. I'll probably likely...
Hang on, so let me get this straight. You're going to have Will Day and Constable sitting on your bench this week?
Yes.
Oh.
That means there's money to be made. They got Will Day to come back in, score points, get my team value right up. They got Constable to downgrade to a rookie. Money to be made. So that's how I look. I'm forward thinking.
So
I'm playing
and
chess. Everyone else is playing checkers. I'm thinking 2 steps ahead. Everyone else is playing for round 5. I'm playing for round 6, 7, 8, 9. But that leads me to my other trades, which I think you're going to love, personally. So, I'll trade out Doherty, because we found out today, a bit of chaos today. He's out as well as Will Day, so 4 to 6 weeks or something like that. And I'll trade out Tom de Koning, so I just can't have him on my field for another week.
So, who do you get Doherty for?
So I'll trade out Tom de Koning first for Tim English, but penciled in at this stage. Haven't locked anything in, but I'm thinking Elliot Yeo.
Oh, jeez.
Because, look, he didn't score well last week. He got subbed off. I think he finished on 48 or something like that. But this is how I see next week playing out for West Coast. They've got two options against Geelong. They've got either they bring in Rhett Basil or Josh Rotham, because we know Barras will probably go to Tom Hawkins.
Yeah.
So they bring in Rotham and Bazo to play on Cameron.
Who's coming out?
Some spud, I don't know, but not Yo.
Sorry, who were their key backs last week? I'm mindful we're boring listeners, but...
No. The key backs last week was Barras, Yo, Duggan.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So this is how I see it happening. So either Yo plays on Cameron, which I think would be a really interesting matchup. We know Cameron likes to get up the ground. I think there's a great opportunity for Yo to keep him accountable and run off Cameron.
Okay.
Just, mate, something say. No. I think there's a really good opportunity for West Coast to try something different here, try something new. Because we know Cameron's probably the best player in the competition at the moment. I think Yo would be a really interesting matchup. Just to try to keep him accountable. He's got the athleticism to probably go with him. The tank will be a different question. But I think there's an opportunity for him to score a fair bit of points up the ground following Cameron around. Conversely, what they could do is bring in Bazo or Rotham to play on Cameron, which frees up Yo a little bit to either get some more midfield time or play that intercept role that he was All-Australian for in 2017, and take some intercept marks, get some +6s, and continue scoring for West Coast. So I think, first week Blues maybe coming back off an injury, plenty of upside, and yeah, I think Yo could be a great choice for coaches this week.
Yeah, don't come crying to me when that
No,
doesn't work.
I think it's a really good chance, and I need to try something new. I scored 1,847 this week, so I need to try something to get my team back up. I need to take a risk.
Or start playing it safe and do something smart for once.
Playing it safe is for, mate, you don't win cars playing it safe, and that's what I'm in the game to do. At my ranking of 32,000, I need to start taking some risks.
Okay, no. I honestly hope Yo does play on Cameron. That'd be entertaining to watch.
All right, and as our listeners know, each week we do our bold predictions for the week. Just to refresh the audience, what was yours last week, Nick?
I got it wrong. So Will Data scored less than 70 against the Cats, and he is such a good player.
He's so good at football.
Unfortunately suspended, as we've mentioned.
But he is just so good at footy.
He's 191 centimetres?
It's about what I expected him to be.
Yeah, I thought he'd be a bit shorter than that.
No, he's very skinny. But yeah, against the likes of Danger and Tom Atkins, he was dominating in there. So clean below his knees as well. He's a great young player. But yeah, silly call from you below 70. He's obviously just going to keep climbing with every game he plays. My big call for the week, and I think it's the boldest call anyone's made all year. Would you agree, Nick?
Yep.
Yeah, he does. Yep. And it was Jake Stringer to kick 4 and score 100. And I wish I'd left that last little bit off, because he did kick 4. He kicked 4 goals, 6, and was the best player on the ground by a mile. After scoring 35 last week, just to put it in context of how bold that call was.
How did he kick 4 goals, 6 and not get 100?
He didn't get many touches. I think that was just about all his touches.
15 kicks, 1 handball.
So yeah, I was pretty chuffed watching that. But also getting extremely frustrated when he finished on 93 and kicked 6 behinds. So unfortunately, I have to take the L there as well. So I'm 0 for 3 for the year. I think you're 1 for 3 with your Sean Darcy bold prediction in quotation marks from a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. No, honestly, you almost deserve a point for that, but I can't give it to you.
No.
But that argument, that's the best prediction we've had so far, even though it's been wrong. I'll say that.
So going into round 5, Nick, what's your bold prediction?
So it's a similar call to what I made last week around Will Day. I'm going to say Harry Sheasel is going to have his first poor performance of the year.
Wow.
Well, I say poor performance.
Give us a less than.
I want you to tell me if this is bold or not. Because keep in mind, his average is 118.3.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say he's going to go below 75.
Give me 70 and you got a deal.
Oh, his average is 118.3.
Mate, give me 70. If he's hitting the rookie wall, he's hitting the rookie wall.
I reckon he's going to go... He won't get to 73.
Oh, Matt, you getting that specific?
Yeah. He's 73.
I'll give it to you. You could still play well and score 73.
Yeah, exactly. We're talking fantasy.
Okay.
So I want you to
keep
in mind Brisbane being a little bit physical with Nick Dacos last week.
Yep.
Saw Zorko getting stuck into him and a few other players as well. She's a similar player off half-back. So, yeah, you never know. I think Brisbane could be physical with him and he's going to have his first sub-73.
Can't you just give me below 70? Because I feel like you got to be... This is bold prediction. If you're going to make a call, you got to follow through with it.
I think he's going to get above 70.
So you think he's going to get either 70, 71 or 72?
Yes. I think he's going below 73.
Why don't you just give an exact score that you think he's going to get?
Okay. No, I say in between 73 and 68.
No, I don't.
That's bold.
I give it that is bold. You've given yourself a very small window.
You made me change halfway through, but...
Well, because this is bold prediction.
Okay. Let's hear yours.
So my bold prediction this week is Isaac Rankin to score 120 plus. I don't want to get specific into how many goals he's going to kick, because I feel like that got me into trouble a little bit with Stringer. But it's a fantasy podcast. I'm going to say 120 plus points. The reason being is it's gather round. It's Thursday night.
Interesting ringtone.
It's Crash Bandicoot Crash Insanity from 2003. It's the theme from that.
Yeah, no, I just need to pick up from Snip.
Pet Money.
Yo.
How you doing?
Good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, mate, not too bad. You're live on air at the moment.
Oh, real? Shit, mate.
Say hello.
Sure, I wasn't expecting that.
Now, we have a very special guest joining us on the podcast today. He's been playing AFL Fantasy for 13 years. He's won 3 premierships in Classic in that time, 2 draft premierships. He's currently leading the Ashton and Friends Keepers League. His name is Petros Poulouaskis. He's coach of Pet Money Sniper. Pet, welcome to the Keeping It Real AFL Fantasy podcast.
Thanks, Ace. Thanks for having me on board, mate.
Mate, no worries. Are you a long-time listener? Have you been listening all year?
I've been listening all year, mate.
Right.
Tuning in.
You've liked and subscribed?
Like and subscribe, mate. And also shared as well, mate. Don't forget that.
Mate, every share counts. You left a comment?
I haven't put in a comment, but I reckon in the future I will. Maybe for this podcast.
Yeah, that'd be nice. That'd be real nice, Pet. Well, we'll jump straight into it, mate.
Sounds good.
So, Pet Money Sniper, obviously been your name for a long period of time and also your Instagram name at one point.
Yeah.
I assume it's due to Kevin Durant being Easy Money Sniper, but I want you to talk us through the origins of your team name.
Yeah, I reckon that's a good question. You're not wrong there. So Kevin Durant influenced me back in the day as a teen. So I decided to spice things up and just put Pet in front of Money Sniper. So yeah, a bit of ring to it, and it's brought me great success.
So it was actually voted as one of the worst team names by Ashalanch in a previous podcast episode. What would you have to say to that?
Who made the comment? Ashalanch did?
Yeah.
Oh, shit. You can just look at his name, right?
you certainly can. Just on the discussion of names, have you had any other names previously? What else have you gone with in the past?
Oh. Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know. I definitely would have, but no clue. might have to go to the settings, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Riveting stuff.
Yeah, continuing on. How's the start to the season been, Pet?
I reckon surprising, to be fair.
Surprising.
Yeah, to be fair. I wasn't really thinking I would be up there so early on. My team was built for the future, but I reckon I've surprise packet, to be honest.
So a few overperforming players you're thinking?
I reckon I just peaked a bit early, maybe.
Yeah. No, I don't mind that.
I don't know. Like, my team's quite young. That was the strategy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really have many old foes. They're all kicking, you know, all prime time, to be fair, or a bit younger, like Joshy Ward. But, surprised, to be honest.
Yeah. So you mentioned you've sort of gone with a young team, or you've ended up with quite a young team. Was that your intention going into the draft to sort of set your team up going forward, or were you still in a win now mode as well?
I reckon, like, on draft day, I was just thinking about the future, you know, like the Hayden Youngs and the Tim Englishes, I think. Tim English was my first pick, correct me if I'm wrong. And then later down in the draft, Tim Kelly was available, which I thought was a bit of a steal. And I've sort of stayed away from any 30 plus, to be honest, which some teams decided to pick up. And for instance, Jack Z was performed, so I'm a bit jealous on that. But yeah, I don't know. I chose a young squad. It's a future, right? It's a future draft.
Well, speaking of...
It's keepers.
Sorry to cut you off. Keep going, Pat.
No, that's all. Just a keepers draft.
Just
Got to plan for the future.
Yeah, no, don't mind it. And on speaking of selections, you did make one that we've spoken about on the pod at length in the first few episodes. He was your first midfield selection. Talk us through picking up Harry Perryman in M1.
He's a bit of a bull, to be honest. That was my sort of outlook for him. He's only at age 24, to be honest, so I thought he was going to come out and have a breakout year. He can play any position. He's kicked 5 before in a game, but he also can play back and also can play mid. I was expecting him, to be honest, to start in the midfield, in the guts, and then he sort of, did a hammy within the first 10 minutes in round 1, so that was a bit disappointing. But to be honest, I still back him. I reckon he's a promising future ahead, to be honest, for PETMONEYSNIPER. He's definitely not in the trade table. I reckon he's a bit of a bull. That's my sort of outlook for him.
Yeah, so is that, you backing him and thinking he's a bull, is that back off your own research, or do you have an inside source from the Giants telling you that he's going to have a big year?
I heard he was having a big pre-season, to be fair.
Training the house down.
You don't have to
training the house down for a big Hogs, I reckon. that was my source. But like Hogs, he's performing this year. Bit jealous and whoever picked him up as well. But yeah, Hogs said Perryman's going to have a big year, so decided to pull the trigger on him quite early.
No, very nice. So another one of your selections that's been a hot topic on the podcast in previous weeks has been Dylan Moore, and the fact that we've hardly actually ever really seen him play, but he always seems to perform really well. Other than this week, he scored a 66.
First time I watched the Hawthorn game, I didn't notice him once.
So talk us through that pick. Did you do a lot of research and you were really keen to get him on draft day?
To be honest, wasn't really that keen. I had him in last year's Shiva draft where I picked him up and was a bit of a surprise packet. And then I saw him, I don't know what pick I got him this year. That shit was quite early. Any stats on that? What pick he was?
Not in front of us right now.
All right, he was pick. Wait, let me get it up. I can have a look. His average draft position was 34, so I assume I got him around that mark.
PETMONEYSNIPER.
What?
Took him at pick 16. I'm looking at the stats in front of me.
Pick 16. So yeah, I took him. I took him quite early then. Right. The forward line quite depleted though in terms of people that you can put on the field. So I think my intention was getting a bit of a young superstar on the field. And he sort of delivered, I reckon, in the first 3 weeks. And in the 4th week, he sort of had a disappointing game against Geelong. But I reckon I still back him, the future, mate. He's a 10-year player, mate, in the PETMONEYSNIPER team. So,
nah, absolutely. It's a great pick considering you took him in front of Rosie Butters, Errol Goulden and Stephen Coniglio.
Maybe Rosie would have been 50-50, but the rest still prefer Dylan Moore over Coniglio or who else? Goulden. I think Dylan Moore is going to be a bit of a star with Sam Mitchell as coach, mate. I still back him along with Will Day and Josh Ward, mate, and Connor McDonald. I reckon they're going to be stars of the future.
Well, you got Mitchie Owens in there too, the rising star winner for this week. I don't think anyone can criticise you now for the Dylan Moore pick, mate. He's performing very strongly and, yeah, you're laughing all the way on top of the ladder.
Exactly, mate. I mean, I'm second, though, to be fair.
Behind Nalvinator, I believe. But he's also second in total points.
Oh, I think I'm first.
So
I'm first in total points, mate.
No, mate. Jared, I think Tickle Taranto's got you covered.
No, he doesn't, mate.
I'm looking.
Oh, what? In Classic or in...
Classic, yeah.
No, we're talking draft.
So I've got my wires crossed here.
Yeah, you certainly have. No, I'm looking at the stats now, and PETMONEYSNIPER is sitting pretty on top by 3 points ahead of, I can never pronounce his name right, launches Harold Whole Destroyer.
Lanch, mate.
Mate.
It's a bit of a strange name. I reckon we need to get him on the pod, to be honest.
We absolutely
and
do.
give him some facts. We need some facts around him.
No, we absolutely do, Pet. So just on the topic of other teams, I'm not sure if you remember draft night too well, or you've been following the other teams' players too closely, but who do you think's best placed to challenge you this season?
I reckon at the beginning of the year, I thought Lenny's had the right strategy, going some big midfield picks, some old dogs who I thought would be able to have a higher ceiling, would be able to probably get some big wins. But sadly, I think he's coming last now, isn't he?
Yeah.
But I reckon looking at the other teams, Lincoln's probably performing quite well. Need to open it up though. He's got a really good back and mid, but then the forward. Not sure about his forward line, but once a few players get in the park like Jed Anderson, if James Rowbottom might get some dual position play, he might be a bit of a threat, to be honest. But I don't know. It's a bit of a strange. It's quite even, to be honest, across the board. I don't think there's one outstanding team, to be honest. I wasn't expecting me to be up there with such a young squad, but yeah.
Yeah, nice. Now, just moving on from the draft league quickly and onto your classic team. I've heard you're in a lot of, or at least some, cash leagues for classic. So I see your ranks just outside the top 4,000 in classic, so performing really well. Obviously, you put a fair bit of emphasis in because you put some money in for some classic leagues. So how's your team going so far?
I'm actually coming second, right? In this, it's a $250 cash league, so 5K little kitty. It's pretty big. Tommy Pryor, I think, is coming 23rd overall, so there's definitely a bit of competition there. But to be honest, sitting second on the ladder is quite handy. And definitely in the hunt for the highlights too. I reckon I just need to probably execute some better trades in comparison to last week by getting Elijah Hewitt and having him start on the field. But and this week as well with what Will Day and Doherty doesn't really help, does it?
Are you going to hold Day or are you going to trade him?
What? Say it again?
Are you going to hold Will Day or are you going to trade him?
I think I'm going to hold Will Day. I reckon I'm going to get rid of Doherty, of course, and I think I'm going to get rid of Horn Francis. I think I might go to Zeeble. I'm a bit late on Zeeble, but I feel like with the position that he's playing and the role, it's hard not to get him.
Nah, there's still cash to be made on Zeeble, mate. Not too late yet, I don't think.
Great insight.
Just wanted to question another player in your team at the moment. Jason Horn Francis. Now, he's just about reached cap on his break even, I think. Are you going to be holding on to him? Are you going to move into your midfield? Are you still expecting growth there? What's the plan for the Horn?
For the Horn Francis, you mean?
For the Hornet, yeah.
Man, I'm getting rid of him. I'm getting rid of him for Zeeble, mate.
Nah, great call. Yeah.
I sort of heard you say that 2 seconds ago.
He's thinking about his next question, not listening to the guest.
I just thought you said you were getting
I didn't
getting out the Hornet.
The Hornet's gone, mate.
Oh, yeah, get rid of the Hornet. Nah, good call.
Interview rule number 1, listen to the guest, don't have your next question pre-planned.
I must have missed it. You must have been mumbling, Pet.
Oh, no, it couldn't have been your fault, Ace.
No, definitely not.
All right, Pet Money Sniper, thanks for joining us, mate. And a massive congrats on your start to the year, both in Classic and in Keepers League. Been very good so far.
Thanks, Nick and Ace. Pleasure to be on board. And good luck for the rest of the season as well.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Thanks, mate. Don't forget to leave a comment this week.
Will do, mate.
Cheers.
Okay, thanks to Pet Money Sniper there. He was a good guest. Spoke really well, I thought.
Yeah, some really great insights from Pet Money there. And it's good to talk to the ladder leaders and total points in our draft league.
Yeah, so where were we? You sort of got the phone call midway through one of your very
bold
points.
predictions.
Okay.
Yeah, midway through my bold prediction, which was Isaac Rankin to score 120 points on Thursday night against the Winnie Blues. Now, the reason I'm predicting this is that Thursday night, first ever gather round at Adelaide Oval, He's coming off a bit of off the field racism situation. So I think he's primed and in as good a position as he will ever be to kick a bag, have a bunch of disposals, and if there was a medal for the game on Thursday night, I'm not sure if there is for Gather Round or whatever, he'll be the one to win it. 120 plus for Isaac Rankin this week. Hold me to it.
All right, I'll hold you to that. Looking forward to seeing how he goes. That pretty much wraps us up, doesn't it?
Certainly does. Yeah, great pod, I reckon. I think Pet Money was a fantastic guest.
Yeah, a little bit out of whack getting the phone call midway through, but I think it'll work. Hopefully the editing isn't too difficult.
Yeah, no, and editing, this will be the first time we've had to edit because of that. Because we've never edited any of these shows before. But yeah, he is looking forward to a big round 5, big gather round, and yeah.
Yeah, if you've got any feedback for us, please leave a comment.
Leave a comment, please. Yeah.
We can take harsh criticism, get stuck in. Anything that's come across your mind, let us know.
Like and subscribe.